What you're about to see is real.
I said, gee, Cara's not home yet. And that's when we became alarmed.
We asked them to go strictly for the face, that is, the throat and the eyes.
I looked at him, man to man, eye to eye, and he started crying. And he told me my daughter's dead.
Hello, I'm Nick Clooney, and this is On Trial. Today, the conclusion of the Craig Pyre murder trial. The former California highway patrolman is accused of strangling a young co-ed and throwing her body 65 feet from a bridge. On the night of December 27, 1986, vacationing college co-ed Cara Knott left her fiancé's house and headed home to San Diego on Interstate 15. Early the next morning, her white Volkswagen was found abandoned. A police search began in the rough terrain below this bridge. On a local news program, California Highway Patrol Officer Craig Pyre broadcast safety tips for women who drive the freeway at night.
Being a female, you could be raped, robbed if you're a male, all the way to where you could be killed.
A media campaign caused many women to report that they had been detained by an officer on the same Mercy Road off-ramp where Cara Knott's body had been found. The information provided by these women led to Craig Pyre. On January 15, 1987, Officer Craig Pyre was arrested and charged with the murder of Cara Knott. His first trial ended in April 1988 when the jury deadlocked 7-5 for conviction. His retrial began on June 7, 1988. Prosecution witness Tracy Koenig saw a white Volkswagen being stopped by a highway patrol car on the night of the murder.
They were going down Mercy Road. They hadn't quite gone down all the way, but it was about halfway.
Prosecution experts linked evidence found at the crime scene with evidence from the defendant's clothing.
It was at the point of looking at the yellow fibers from the patch that I realized that I had seen that fiber before on the victim's tapelet.
In today's portion, we'll hear testimony about the scratches seen on Craig Pyre's face and his alleged altered disposition following the murder. If found guilty, Craig Pyre faces a sentence of life in prison as he goes on trial. In this case, the prosecution contends that Craig Pyre stopped Cara Knott at Mercy Road, then made advances toward her. When she refused, a struggle ensued which resulted in the girl's death. A struggle that left the officer scratched and disheveled. The defense claims that Craig Pyre is a victim of circumstantial evidence and had nothing to do with Cara Knott's death. Key elements in testimony from the actual trial have been edited together to present this case. Remember, what you are watching is real. Craig Pyre's retrial for the murder of Cara Knott takes place in San Diego Municipal Court. A 12-member jury will hear the case. Judge Richard D. Hoffman, 3 years on the bench, also presided at the first trial. He is a former California Deputy Attorney General. The prosecution team is headed by Paul Pfingst, who was not involved in the first trial. He spent 5 years trying murder cases in New York before moving to California. Deputy District Attorney Joan Stein will assist. She was also not involved in the first trial. Criminal law specialist Robert Grimes will defend Craig Pyre. He is assisted by attorney Diane Campbell. Both represented the defendant at his first trial. As the prosecution's case continues, Shirley Schwartz, who was working at a gas station near San Diego, claims to have seen the defendant on the night of the incident when he came in to fill the tank of his patrol car.
Approximately what time did the highway patrol officer come to buy gas at your station?
I would say somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock.
Can you describe for us what you saw on the officer's face?
Scratches off to the right side, leading from about the nose to about the middle of his cheeks.
And was that one scratch or more than one scratch?
From what I recall, about 3.
Defense attorney Robert Grimes cross-examined.
You stated that someone showed you a newspaper article about Officer Pyre's arrest and it had his picture in it, didn't it?
Yes.
That newspaper article also said the officer arrested had scratches on his face, didn't it?
I have no idea. I didn't read the article.
You didn't read the article?
No, I did not.
So to your testimony, you didn't read anything about scratches or anything else in that article?
Basically, I recognized that person and I called.
And you didn't want to find anything about why he'd been arrested?
No, it would have colored my testimony.
Officer Carlos Gutierrez was just leaving headquarters when Craig Pyer returned from his shift on the night of December 27th.
When you left the CHP station and went out to look for your ride, at about what time did you go outside?
About 25 minutes after 10.
And when you went outside, did you see anybody outside in the parking lot?
Yes, I did.
Who did you see?
I saw Mr. Pyer.
Now, how close did you come to this defendant, Mr. Pyer, that night?
About a foot and a half away.
Did you have an opportunity to see his face?
Yes, I did.
And did you notice whether there were any marks on his face?
Yes, there were.
What type of marks did you notice on his face?
Scratch marks to his face.
Mr. Grimes cross-examined.
Mr. Gutierrez, did the scratches, at the time did you say that you think they look like cat scratches?
Yes, I
Do you have cats?
Yes, sir, I
Have you been scratched by them ever?
do. Yes, I have.
And that's what it looked like to you, the kind of scratches?
Yes, sir, I did.
Prosecution witness William Coleman operates a local dry cleaning plant. He received a pair of Highway Patrol uniform trousers a few days after Cara Knott's murder.
And were there any special instructions as to how to handle those pants?
They were to pre-spot blood.
The defense cross-examines.
If someone were to be making a note to pre-spot blood, would that be because the customer had indicated that this was something they wanted?
Yes.
Do you know who brought it in? If it was Mr. Pyer or Mrs. Pyer?
I have no idea because the store's in I work out of my Rancho Bernardo store.
So you don't know who in the Pyer family brought it?
Or even if it was anybody in the Pyer family.
Okay. Thank you.
The prosecution called Gary Clayton Harmer, the forensic scientist, to examine Cara Knott's clothing for signs of blood other than her own. He testified that he found type AB blood on the victim's sweatshirt. Craig Pyer has type AB blood, the rarest human blood type. Mr. Harmer went on to explain that between 12 and 18,000 people in the San Diego area also have type AB blood. Prior to police suspicion focusing on a patrolman, Officer Jill Ogilvy answered a call that Craig Pyer was questioning possible suspects in the murder of Cara Knott. When Pyer was arrested, Officer Ogilvy came forward.
I responded to a radio call that's told me to go to the area of Mercy Road and I-15 to meet a California Highway Patrol officer who was detaining possible murder suspects.
Did you go to that location?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you do there?
I said, "Are these suspects any good for murder?" And he said, "No." I said, "Officer, if they're no good for suspects, what are we doing here?" And he said, "Well, they were down there, and the cook always returns to the scene of the crime."
After the suspects were released, she talked with Officer Pyer about Cara Knott's autopsy findings.
He then said, "Well, what would they be looking for in an autopsy?" I explained to him that with fingernail scrapings, for example, they could get pieces of skin, and they could possibly link a suspect if the pieces of skin were big enough. As I said this to him, he said, "You can get all that much, huh?" And he began to clean his fingernails, beginning with his left hand.
What happened then?
At that point in time, he pressured me, what is really the thoughts of what's going on? What really happened down there? I said, "I don't know. But somebody got her down there." And I said, as I motioned to the west side of the bridge, and threw her off there. He looked at me and said, "You don't even know what you're talking about. You really just don't even know." He said, "She wasn't thrown over there. She was put over there," and motioned to the east side of the bridge.
Did there come a point in your discussion where you talked about what you thought should happen to the person who committed that crime?
Yes.
What was it essentially that you said without getting into the graphic details?
He asked me, "What do you think will happen to the person when they catch them?" And I said, "I hope they die a slow and painful death." He immediately got angry with me. He said, "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what happened down there." I believe his exact quote was, "It could have been something that got out of hand. It could have been something that just went too far." He was very angry. His personality seemed to change. His voice inflection seemed to change. He was perturbed. He was hostile.
No further questions.
Robert Grimes cross-examines for the defense.
Ms. Ogilvy, where you told us that you were describing to this officer various things that you could find from skin under fingernails and that type of thing. Was this information that you believe to be true from your training, or were you just trying to get a rise from the officer?
Information that I believe to be true from my training.
So you didn't tell him anything that you just thought sounded good to you at the time?
No, sir, I didn't do that.
The prosecution is now rested. We'll see the defense case when on trial returns. The prosecution has tried to establish that former patrolman Craig Pyer was in the habit of stopping women at Mercy Road, but he had scratches on his face and appeared to be agitated following the murder. There is no conclusive physical evidence or eyewitness testimony linking the defendant to the crime. We return to the courtroom as the defense calls its own witnesses to present a different version of events. Remember, what you are watching is real. Susan Lambert says that she was driving south on Interstate 15 on the night of the murder at about the same time the victim would have been on that road.
Did you see another vehicle that attracted your attention?
Yes, I did.
What kind of vehicle was that?
It was a white Volkswagen Bug.
Could you describe anybody you saw in that car?
The driver was a male, approximately 30, 35 years old, beard, mustache, kind of scruffy looking. He had a female passenger in the front seat, and there was a male and a female in the back seat.
Okay. Did you notice anything about the male and the female in the back seat?
They were wrestling around a little bit.
And did you observe that Volkswagen take an exit?
Yes, I did.
What exit did they take?
The Mercy Road off-ramp.
When you compare...
Prosecutor Finks cross-examines.
And the woman, what did she look like?
Blonde. Real pretty blonde.
Okay. So there's a reason why you remember that it was a real pretty blonde? What?
No reason, except the next day when I heard.
And now you were looking at, you said the next day is that you heard it was a pretty blonde woman?
Well, they showed a picture of her on the TV.
Oh, was that the woman you saw in the car?
I'm not sure.
The defense calls Sergeant John McDonald, Craig Pyer's supervisor, who was questioned about a telephone complaint he received 1 month before Cara Knott's murder.
The person on the phone identified herself as the mother of a 23-year-old daughter who had been stopped by Officer Pyer at Mercy Road in 15, and the person wanted to know what the Highway Patrol's written policy was concerning taking people off the freeway on a traffic stop.
Did you have any discussion with Officer Pyer regarding this telephone call?
Yes, I did. And I told him that I had received a complaint regarding this matter, and that I thought he did a good job of using good tactics to take that person off the freeway.
Thank you, Sergeant. Nothing further.
Comparing other fibers, is that correct? You found other...
The prosecution cross-examines.
Had you been aware of the fact that there were 30 or possibly 40 other similar traffic stops, young women being taken down to a dark area, would you have commended Officer Pyer for that behavior?
Absolutely not.
Defense witness Adele Tolgard had been pulled over by Pyer for having a dim headlight. After checking her car, the defendant advised her that her engine was out of oil. The defense is trying to counter the prosecution's contention that Craig Pyer was in the habit of stopping women by showing that he was only trying to help them when he did.
He offered to give me a ride home, and we vacillated back and forth. I asked him, Nick, would it be fine if he just called AAA for me, or I could maybe just drive. I had another exit to go to. But he seemed that he would rather have given me a ride, and it was fine.
And did he give you a ride someplace?
Yes, he did give me a ride too. My sitters, where my little girl at that time was 9 months old, was, and then we picked her up and he drove us home.
The prosecution now cross-examines Adele Tolgard.
Did you originally indicate you didn't really want to take a ride with him?
Yes.
Did he talk you into riding with him?
I suppose you could say so, yeah.
It was 1 Adam 12.
Defense attorney Grimes calls Karen Pyer, wife of the defendant. He questions her about Officer Pyer on the night of Cara Knott's death.
When he left, do you remember, what did he do when he left, as he was leaving?
Him and I walked out together, and I had Casey in my arms, and we just walked out saying goodbye and loved each other. I'd give each other a kiss, and I'd walk him out to the car, and I walked him out to the car, and he left.
Do you know what time he came home then?
He came home
About 11:15.
Now, the next day, Sunday, December 28th, did you observe any articles of clothing that appeared to be in need of cleaning?
Yes.
What was that?
He asked me to take a look at his uniform clothing that he had worn.
And what clothing did you look at?
Well, I looked at his uniform pants.
And was there anything on that that needed cleaning?
Yes, he did. He had a stain on it.
What did it stain? Have you seen stains on your kids' clothes and his clothes through the years?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever seen a blood stain?
Yes.
Is that what this looked like?
Yes.
Did he ever tell you we better burn these pants or anything like that? What was it decided to do with those pants?
That I would take them to the cleaners when I was running errands that week.
Okay. And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Prosecutor Pfingst, cross-examined.
And you talked about the fact that your husband came home between 5:30 and 6 o'clock on the 27th, is that correct?
Yes.
Did he have any scratches on his face at that time?
No, he did not.
When he came home the second time that night, did you notice that he had scratches on his face?
Yes, I did.
Did you see any injuries on your husband, or observe any injuries on your husband's hands when he came home?
Yes, he had a dime-sized wound on his hand. It was an old wound. It looked like it had been reopened.
Defense Attorney Grimes redirects.
Now, as you mentioned that there was an old wound on his hand that was reopened, can you tell us when he got that?
The week before Christmas, it would have been the day before the CHP Christmas party, he had taken a day to go ride motors with the motor squad. They were having a practicing day. And he came back with what looked like a burn wound from the motorcycle.
The defense has rested. Now, the closing arguments.
If you knew about the defendant's behavior with other women, and you heard that Cara Knott was killed down at Mercy Road, who would be the first person you would look to? You'd say, is that cop Pyer working that beat? And sure enough, he was. Does that cop Pyer have this type of blood? Sure enough, he does. Does that cop Pyer have fibers on his jacket that would match what was found on her hands and on her shirt? Sure enough, he does. Did that cop Pyer have access to a rope that could have caused these injuries? Absolutely did. Did that cop Pyer act strange after the killing? You bet he did. Did the cop Pyer try and hide his activities and change any of his records? You bet he did that too. And you can go down a list of these things one after another, day after day, and come up with the same answers. Yes, he did, yes, he did, yes, he did. And the reason for that is just simple. He killed Cara Knott.
No matter how much you disapproved of Craig Pyer stopping other women and talking to them longer than necessary, there is not any evidence at all of any motive to kill somebody. Has the prosecution proved everything beyond a reasonable doubt? Do any of the points that have been raised in this case create a reasonable possibility that Craig Pyer is not guilty? If so, the case hasn't been proven. It's not going to be quick, but after carefully going over everything, I think you agree, not proven, and that means not guilty.
The jury has retired to deliberate in the case of Craig Pyer, who is facing a life sentence for the murder of Cara Knott. We'll see the verdict when On Trial returns. Craig Pyer's retrial took place over a period of 6 weeks. We return to the courtroom as the defendant waits for the jury to return. The jury has been deliberating for 5 days. For Craig Pyer, a year and a half of waiting is nearly over. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison.
Mr. Smith, I'm informed that the jury has reached a verdict. Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, would you pass the verdict to the bailiff, please?
Case number CR 87223, the people of the state of California versus Craig Allen Pyer. Verdict: we, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Craig Allen Pyer, guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187 as charged in Count 1 of the information, and fix the degree thereof as murder in the first degree.
On August 3rd, 1988, Craig Pyer returned to the court to be sentenced. Judge Hoffman permitted Karen Pyer and Cara Knott's father to plead before the sentencing.
Cara Knott was a gorgeous, a vivacious, well-loved person. And during the trial, I really felt the pain of the family. And I'm sorry that you've had to endure so much. And I am deeply sorry that she was killed. But my husband was a friendly, vibrant, and well-loved person too. And in my heart, and in my family's heart, we all know that you have the wrong man.
It is our fervent hope that this predator will never walk the streets again. He kidnapped and brutally murdered our sweet Cara while hiding behind his badge and bragging his sacred trust to society. We will never get over the loss of our precious Cara. The pain will be with us for the rest of our lives.
I can't fix anything. I can't order restitution. There's nothing I can do in this sentence that's going to repair any damage. I'm satisfied. This defendant has been proven guilty by overwhelming evidence. It is therefore the judgment and sentence of the court for defendant Craig Allen Pyre be committed to the state prison for the term of 25 years to life.
Craig Pyre's conviction is currently under appeal.